So I've been living abroad for over 10 years now, and here are 10 things that I've learned over that time. Number one is that your home country isn't as special as you think it is. Don't you think it's funny how all the Italians think Italy's the best place in the world to live? The Spanish will think that Spain is the best place in the world to live. Even the Malaysians think that there's no better place in the world but Malaysia. The sad reality is that most people don't leave their country. They don't get the opportunity to go and live abroad. So they don't have the data points. They have nothing else to compare it to. They've been on holiday to these places, but it's a completely different experience to go on holiday somewhere as opposed to live somewhere. And of course, it's in your government's best interest to make you think that your country is the best place for you to live in the world. And unfortunately, a lot of us buy into that opinion. The second thing that I've learned through my travels is that many people stay in their country out of fear. I speak with so many people who always say to me, "Oh, you're so lucky. Oh, I wish I could do that." And I ask them, "Why don't you?" And they say, "Oh, I'm scared," or "No, it's not for me." But I was also scared. I also thought that traveling is not for me. There's nothing special about me. The only difference is that I jumped, I did it. And the reality is that once you go and you live abroad once and you move and you build a whole new life and you start again, you realize it's not that scary. And once you can do it once, you can do it again and you can do it again. It's just the first time is the hardest. But you have to be brave enough to take the leap. You are not choosing to stay where you are. You are scared to leave. There's a big difference. The third thing that I've learned through my travels is that your passport is your biggest flex. It's actually really sad that depending on where you were born and depending on what passport you have, really will determine how much opportunities you have in life. It's really one of the things that annoys me the most because it's totally not fair. Just because you were born in Syria puts you on a list, which means you can't travel to 90% of the countries. But maybe a Syrian person who was born in Spain and has a Spanish passport can suddenly have 90% of the world where he can travel to. And that just makes absolutely no sense to me. You're not responsible for where you were born. Having a Spanish passport or having a Syrian passport doesn't make you a better person. For instance, my family's from Iran. My actual culture is much more Iranian than I am Spanish, but I just happened to be born in Spain because my mum lived in Spain. Therefore, I have a Spanish passport. So technically, legally, I'm Spanish, but my culture is not Spanish at all. I'm actually much more Iranian than I am Spanish. So fortunately for me, I can use my Spanish passport to travel almost anywhere in the world that I want. But it's just not fair, because if I had an Iranian passport, no one would let me in anywhere. The fourth thing that I've learned is that everything that you read in the media about other countries is most likely wrong and has a lot of propaganda baked in. For instance, living in the UK for so long, I heard so many stories about China and how unsafe it is and how aggressive it is towards its own people and to foreigners. And living there, I saw the complete opposite. It could be nothing further from the truth. It was totally welcoming, super safe, and even though I knew I was being watched constantly by the CCTV, I didn't feel that I had to watch what I say or do at any moment. And of course, not just with China, with almost every country that I go to, I will always be warned that this country's safe, but just don't cross the border to our neighbors because it's very unsafe there. And it's always turned out to be nonsense, right? You always think your country's safe and your neighboring countries are unsafe, but it's not true. And you only know that it's not true by actually going there yourself. Go, make your own opinions. Don't read and take for granted what you hear in the news. The fifth thing that I've realized living abroad is that every country feeds its own citizens a whole bunch of propaganda too. You have a narrative about your country and how you think the world sees your country, which is completely made up by your government. For instance, I'm currently living now in Japan. And, the Japanese people still think that they are in the forefront of technology, they are living a good quality of life, where really Japan has been falling behind for the best part of a decade. And they don't understand that countries like Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia have all caught up to Japan, and countries like China have completely surpassed Japan in technology and quality of life. But of course, that's not what the government tells them. So it's always very important to not believe your surroundings too much and understand that you live inside a bubble and that all of your friends, all of the people in your sphere are all thinking the same as you. The sixth thing that I learned from living abroad for the last 10 years is that just because you live in a developed country doesn't mean that you have a developed quality of life. Higher salary doesn't always equate to a better lifestyle. For instance, you can live in Europe and make a lot of money. Living in London, I did very well. But where does that money go? What do you actually get for your money at the end of the month? For me, that is what's the most important thing. I don't want a life where I have to go to work every single day, take a train 1 hour into work, 1 hour home, have to go to a supermarket, cook my own food, only have 1.5 days of rest on the weekend, and then have to start preparing for work again. It doesn't matter how much money you pay me, that lifestyle wouldn't appeal to me, especially if I'm having to live somewhere where the weather is bad and grim, and what can I even do with my money? The only way that Londoners spend their money is to eat, drink, or to go on holidays and actually get out of the UK. Where if you compare that to just across the sea in Spain, the salaries are much, much lower, but everyone has a much better quality of life. They work the minimum, they don't care too much about money. As long as they have enough money for their breakfast and their coffee and to sit in the sun and get a beer after work, they are happy. And I would argue that sometimes it's exactly like Biggie says, more money, more problems. Better to make less and have a better quality of life. At the end of the day, the money is just there to pay for your quality of life. The seventh thing that I learned living abroad for the last 10 years is how much I value living in a country that's completely safe. Being a Londoner, growing up in London, it always made me laugh when people would tell me, oh, don't go to this city, it's very dangerous. I remember being robbed when I'm 15 years old on the streets, getting into fights with people. It's just part of daily life in London. I think now, when you come and you live in countries like Malaysia, like in Japan currently, China, because they're so safe, it really softens you. You forget that you can just walk around in the streets with your phone out and not even thinking about anyone coming to snatch your phone. Sometimes I have to remind myself, don't just leave your phone on the table and walk away and go pick up your coffee. Don't just walk around with your phone like this, just not paying attention. Because in London, your phone will be gone. And it's a really sad way to live. And it's crazy that we have got to a point in Europe where we actually put up with these kind of things and we think that this is normal. Because let me tell you now, it is not normal. And it's only until you live in a society that values its safety that you realize just how nice it is. Especially to bring up a family. I couldn't imagine having kids and bringing them up in Europe when there's an opportunity to bring them up in a society where you can let the kid play and you don't even have to watch them. They're going to be completely fine. The eighth thing that I learned living abroad over the last 10 years is that many, many, many people work much harder than you and have much less than you. We think that we deserve the life that we've built because we've worked hard or we've suffered, but it's not true. We were just fortunate to be born or grow up in a country that gave us these opportunities with inflated salaries for doing very little when you really think about it. And then you come to Southeast Asia and you see people who have no other choice but to just clean the roads or dig the roads and do manual labor or be a Grab driver. And they are working 10, 11, 12-hour shifts per day, 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. And the very little money they get, half of it they send home and the other half they just spend living in a flat share with maybe 10 other people just to survive. And this is why it's so important to me to teach people about how to make money passively, especially through investing, because that old adage of the harder you work, the more money you make is not true. You have to be working smart. And unfortunately, we don't teach people how to work smart. We only want people to work hard. And the sad reality is these people with the least are usually the ones who complain the least. Even myself, I remember I was much happier when I was poor. When I was poor, if I managed to have enough money to buy a Domino's pizza and sit in a park with my friends, we would have a fantastic time. Now I fly to Italy, eat the pizza there, and I say, nah, it's okay, I've had better pizza. So much easier to be happy with less. And that's something that I always try to really remind myself and simplify my needs and wants and try to just live as basic lifestyle as I can. The ninth thing that I've learned from living abroad for the last 10 years is that your comfort zone is your biggest prison. Many people want to live abroad, but they've become comfortable in their lifestyle and they are scared to shake things up. They have a safe job, they are making decent money, they have their family living 2 streets away, and they think that if they leave, those things will be gone forever. But for me, I always think that in your comfort zone, there's no growth. I lived in London for 26 years. If I stayed another 26 years, nothing else would have changed. I would have just made a bit more money. But if you haven't done everything you want to do in a place after 20 years, you're probably not going to do it in the next 20 years. Sometimes to grow, you need to take risks. You need to just jump. You need to follow your gut, see where it takes you. It all just always comes back to, you're not going to be here for long, guys. You were not brought onto this earth to be comfortable. Like they always say, if you do what you've always done, you will get what you've always got. And the 10th thing that I've learned from living abroad and probably the most important lesson that I learned is when I meet older people traveling. The people who've spent most of their life working, saving for retirement, finally they get to retirement, they start to travel, and that realization hits them, and they ask themselves, why did I wait? Why? I was sold this lie that if I just work hard, save my money, when I'm ready to retire, I can go and enjoy myself. But they never read the small print. They were never told that, yes, you will get to retire and travel the world, but you will have no energy, you will have no health, you will always be tired. You will not experience it in the same way that you would have done if you had done it when you were 20, 30, 40, even 50. Half of those bucket list dreams that you had of hiking up to Machu Picchu, those days are gone. Now you get on the bus, you go on the tours, you take the cruise. Your dreams that you had, your idea of adventures now have to change to match your physical abilities. And for me, there's nothing worse than seeing that regret in their eyes and that realization just hit them in the face. You know, it's sad. I don't take any pleasure from it. In fact, the only thing it does is it reinforces that idea to me that I should do this now. I should keep going now, because I don't want to be exploring the world at the age of 60 without any of my energy. So explore when you're young, work when you're old. That's my philosophy. Now, these are just a few of the lessons that I've learned from my experiences, from my travels. Really, my only message to you is get out of your comfort zones. Don't think too much. Don't make plans for the future. The future doesn't exist. Maybe you get there, maybe you don't. But what can never be taken away from you are your memories. If you go now, you travel, you make the memories, you have the experiences, you have the adventures, those things will stay with you forever. Nothing that can happen in the future can take those away from you. But you stay in your comfort zone. There could be a war, there could be a market crash, there could be sickness. All of your dreams, all of your hopes, all of your adventures can be taken away from you in a second. So I'll leave you with my favorite quote of all. Every man lives two lives, and the second one begins when he realizes he only has one. Catch you soon.